Okay, so from J-Lo and Ben Affleck to Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly, Hollywood is full of celebrities navigating blended families, and we know it's not always easy.
So here with tips on how to merge families in a safe and healthy way is youth and family therapist Tania DaSilva. Welcome back to the show, Tania.
Nice to see you guys. Finally in person.
Great to see you in person and out of your office.
I know.
We've got you here on the couch. Okay, what are some of the most common challenges in blending families?
For us, what we usually see when they're coming into the office is the age gap. So if you're trying to blend like a 14-year-old and a 4-year-old, they're developmentally they're in different stages, so that becomes difficult, as well as the similarities. So sometimes if you have a 9-year-old daughter and you bring in another 9-year-old little girl, all of a sudden they want the same friends, the same things, and that can also become a conflict. So that usually is something that comes up. The other part is the parenting piece. So for some parents, they have that inexperience, like you have a 4-year-old, now you're trying to parent a teen, you're not there yet, you have no idea what to do, or just their parenting styles. So if one's more permissive, another one's more authoritative, there's usually a little bit of an adjustment period.
So what about when it comes to the actual process of combining the families together? Any advice on how to make that tricky, situation much more smooth?
Yes, so we always say it first needs to start with the parents. So they need to make sure that they're solid, their relationship is where it needs to be, and that they're having all these conversations before merging the families. So like, what does parenting mean? What does this look like? We need to have those hard conversations. And then I always talk about it in terms of like a slow exposure. So bringing them in as a friend. This is a friend, their kids are friends, we're gonna go out together. It gives you the opportunity to see how you feel about it and how your kids are reacting. And what I love is it gives you that background information where your kids will come home and they're like, I like them, I don't like them. So then you can really figure out, do I want to keep moving forward with it? And then once you know, you want to include them. So like, what are their boundaries? What are their expectations? What questions do they have? We want to make sure that we're all kind of working through it together, but not jumping ahead.
I mean, even in the best situations, inevitably challenges are going to come up. So what's the best way to handle them or approach them?
In terms of actually starting the blended
challenges that come up in the blended family situation.
Yeah, so usually what we do is, I'm always a big fan of family meetings anyway, but especially when you're trying to blend a family, you want to make sure that you're on top of things. So we like to have a weekly meeting where we have an agenda. So routines, schedules, new things that are coming up, what we're adjusting to. And within that, obviously we have a portion where we're talking about the challenges, we're discussing things that are a struggle, we're talking about solutions, and then we're actually ending off with something that we all want to do. So like a preferred activity, something that's fun. The crucial part, especially for blended families, is actually keeping it in your regular schedule, because you might not have a problem, but now you have the structure and the routine and the time to talk about it when they come up as well.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm just having flashbacks because my Portuguese dad always had family meetings.
I know, but they were never fun. There was never a preferred activity. It was just business. Some Portuguese too.
Exactly. So you mentioned connecting with your partner's kids. I'm sure there's going to be, we hope it's going to be smooth, but probably it's not going to be smooth because, that's humans.
Exactly.
So how do you nail those initial interactions to really ensure a smooth transition?
I think sometimes we go in like too hard, too fast, or we're thinking about all the rules and the parenting and reprimanding, and you need to take it slow and easy. So it's like, how are you going to be curious about the child, get to know them? How are you going to be interesting? I'm always like, what's interesting about you that they might actually want to talk to you about or learn about?
How are you going to be interesting?
Exactly. Make them like you.
Good question.
So that's always a big thing. And usually they're like, oh, I never thought about that. But I'm like, if they want to get to know you, that's a lot easier for sure. And then a big part is being part of the fun activities. So nothing that you're overstepping boundaries, nothing that's too serious or too vulnerable. Keep it light and simple first. And then obviously the kids is a whole other thing. So we always talk about how can we get them to collaborate, to cooperate, to do things together, to make decisions together, put them on the same team, even if it's like family game night, make them, face you and your partner. So now they're bonding in a way too, that just helps with that progression.
Love.
Even if everything does go smoothly and everybody gets along and everybody loves each other and leads with love, there are going to be moments when you're blending a family where, especially philosophically, you differ in your parenting style. Like, what if one family is okay with social media and the other isn't okay with social media, and then you blend them all together? What happens? So how families, how should they navigate that?
That comes up a lot, especially in our therapy sessions, because that's usually what brings them to us. But what we always talk about is, again, before blending, you want to try and have as many conversations as possible. And then even during, things are going to come up that you didn't think about, right? So it's talking about, what's the situation? Can we actually compromise here? So can we meet in the middle? If this is a non-negotiable, can one of us bend? Like, does it mean a lot to you and maybe not too much to me? Sometimes a non-negotiable can be a deal breaker. The silver lining that I always bring up is, if there is a bigger gap, sometimes it works where if I have a 14-year-old daughter and I'm like, this is how I'm managing my child, my partner might stand, kind of step back. And if he has a 6-year-old, when your child gets there, you'll manage it your way and I'll step back. The gap makes it easier. When they're closer in age, there's comparisons, right? So that sometimes creates a lot more of that compromising and figuring out, what are the non-negotiables? How are we actually going to navigate this?
We don't have a lot of time left. We don't squeeze this in, which is actually a big question. But let's say the relationship, for whatever reason, doesn't work out and the couple decides to separate. How should families deal with that? How should they approach that?
And that does happen. So I always talk about, plan for your breakup before you even introduce the family. And what I mean by that is, before you introduce them, it's a big question. If we break up, do you want no contact with my kids anymore? Do you still want to be part of their lives? This is a big one. They can be a deal breaker too. So you want to have that breakup conversation, and then we'd go about it the same way, where we figure it out on the back end, we share what's age appropriate, and we kind of just move through those motions the way any separation or divorce would go.
Whew, gosh, Tania, big stuff. Glad to have you here to take us through that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Big.
Hey there, and thanks for sticking around. Wasn't that just fantastic? You know where you can get some more all-around great content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with all the laughs and thought-provoking chats you could ask for. So do yourself a favor, like and subscribe now.